Every tech revolution promises change, whether it was personal computers, the internet, social media, or smartphones. So why is AI fundamentally different? And what makes this disruption unlike anything that we've seen before? Keep listening to find out. Support for this podcast comes from Smart Recruiters. Are you looking to supercharge your hiring? Meet Winston, Smart Recruiters' AI-powered companion. I've had a demo of Winston. The capabilities are extremely powerful, and it's been crafted to elevate hiring to a whole new level. This AI sidekick goes beyond the usual assistant, handling all the time-consuming admin work so you can focus on connecting with top talent and making better hiring decisions. From screening candidates to scheduling interviews, Winston manages it all with AI precision, keeping the hiring process fast, smart, and effective. Head over to smartrecruiters.com and see how Winston can deliver superhuman results.
There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of history.
Hi there, welcome to episode 740 of Recruiting Future with me, Matt Alder. Recruiting Future helps talent acquisition teams drive measurable impact by developing strategic capability in foresight, influence, talent, and technology. This episode is about foresight and technology. We've lived through technological revolutions before. Personal computers, the internet, smartphones, social media, each one felt transformative at the time, reshaping how we work and communicate. But something fundamentally different is happening now. AI learns from every interaction and improves with every release. Yet the signals are confusing. Some pilots are failing, and the hype levels are off the scale. Meanwhile, some companies are reporting the potential for hundreds of millions in savings. Capability benchmarks are doubling every 7 months, and entire organizational structures are being reimagined around human-AI collaboration. So, how do employers cut through the noise and prepare for such a fundamental shift? My guest this week is Michael Chong, futurist and founder of Uber Trends Academy. In our conversation, Michael explains what makes this revolution different, how to spot the true long-term trends beyond the hype, and shares practical strategies for navigating the transformation ahead. Hi, Michael, and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt. It's fun to be here.
A pleasure to be talking to you. Please, could you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do?
Okay, I am Michael Chong. I'm a futurist and founder of Uber Trends Academy. I map big waves that change behavior, then translate them into practical moves.
Fantastic. So let's just start with that. How do you be a futurist? What is it that you look for? How do you kind of help people understand what might happen in the future?
So a little bit of background. I was the founder of a couple of startups. I was in digital marketing last, and I was part of the dot-com bust. So I decided that, there needed to be a better way of signal triangulation, So that's what I do. I take weak signals, I detect patterns, and then I translate them into Uber trends. I track 8 Uber trends, long wave drivers like time compression, the acceleration of life, digital lifestyle, the marriage of man and machine. And these 2 Uber trends are the ones I focus on mainly when speaking, because I believe they have the greatest impact on the people that may attend my presentations. So the futurist part is basically just analyzing the immediate past and seeing how we are changing as a society. There are significant value drivers here that are changing. So, for example, time compression has made us more impatient, demanding of instant gratification. And for example, also, enamored with multitasking energy drinks that boost our energy to be able to cope with our busy TBD driven days, which is too busy disorder days. That's what I do. So, and being part of the technology industry, I originally started in advertising in New York, but then found my way to the West Coast. So, of course, being part of this whole huge, massive technology wave has seen me be part of three revolutions: the computer, the internet, and now AI. And there's no doubt in my mind that based on all the things that I see happening, that AI is going to reshape society more than anything ever before.
Let's dive into that, because that's kind of really interesting. And I suppose over the last sort of 20 years or so, we've seen the internet, we've seen other innovations come off the back of that with social and mobile and cloud computing and big data and all these kind of things. What is it that's different about AI from some of the other innovations that we've seen in the last 20 years?
Well, I think that the difference with AI is that it actually has a long-term goal of artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And as we all know, we're slowly moving towards the singularity future where, the machines are going to become the dominant workforce. And I call that trend the rise of the machine workforce. And then combined with AI agent acceleration, which is this whole trend that, of course, everyone is talking about now, we are literally going to do all the tasks that humans have traditionally done themselves. Well, not all, maybe, but most of them, that AI will basically just replace. And that's what makes it so dramatically different from anything that's happened before. There was a television show back in 2019, January of 2019, where Kai-Fu Lee, a former Google VP and now venture capitalist in Beijing, he said that AI will change the world more than anything in the history of mankind, more than electricity. That kind of changes that are going to happen. And I don't think anybody is really prepared for disruption. We talk about it, but I don't think there's, at least from where we sit here in the United States, there is so little 5-year, 10-year planning going on to be able to harness this technology and put it to good use, because what's going to happen is going to be a dramatic change in the workforce and how we and how many people are going to be displaced by it.
And what is it about AI sort of specifically that makes it different from, the computing revolution or even the electricity revolution? What is it that's kind of more all-encompassing than those?
Well, we had the internet, which connected us, provided us with connected information. Then we got the smartphone, which connected people. And that, of course, came around the same time that Twitter and Facebook showed up. And that whole on-the-go social media connectedness so dramatically reshaped society. And again, that is a perfect example of how things can change beyond what we would have predicted, because we, of course, all predicted there's going to be a positive force. You've got the Arab Spring. You've got all these really great things happening. And then look at what happened. We got algorithms that connected people that will just fed their echo chambers, and we have had some unexpected results, as we like to say, technology. And then when we have AI connects cognition. So I think that is really what sets it apart. And like I said, the difference is it learns and compounds. So time compression, change is coming faster. It's going to touch more jobs, and it keeps improving with each new release. And that's what makes it so formidable.
I kind of agree in terms of the way it's sort of moving forward. And, as you say, I think that, certainly at the government level, the right conversations are not necessarily had right now. What about business level? Do you think that businesses are moving in the right direction? Are you seeing any organizations that are kind of embracing this and really thinking about it at a sort of a deep structural level?
Oh, I'm sure there are. In research, we tend to divide the markets into quintiles or approximate fifths. And what you will get is that the early adopter fifth or quintile is obviously heavily involved in this disruption and is moving ahead and is doing things aggressively, whereas the bottom 40% does very little. And what we're seeing now, for example, ChatGPT user study that was just released last week was fascinating because what it found was that 70% of the usage was out of the office, was away, like at home, doing things that are probably travel planning or, simple rewriting was the number one application. So again, what you're seeing is the early adopters are perhaps using it strategically, but the majority of users are still using it as just a writing assistant. And it can do a heck of a lot more than that. Strategic advice is what we're focused on. So, I'm launching an AI CEO executive briefing that talks about these very topics on how to better harness AI and make it much more of a co-CEO, if you will, to make it more effective in your use as opposed to just being an assistant author, if you will.
There's sort of talk of hybrid organizational structures with AI actually in the structure and humans and working together in very, very different ways. How do you see that panning out? Well, how is that going to look in the sort of the short to medium term as companies realize the power of this thing and start to evolve?
Well, I think that, the way I see it is that, we as organizations need to simplify our goals. And that is typically not, the forte of most large corporations. They like to make things far more complicated than they need to be. To answer your question directly, hybrid is obviously the way to go and is the way of the current status quo. But I believe that, as these models become more powerful and we are seeing capability thresholds exceeded, AI can do a lot more end to end without babysitting, we're going to see a lot more changes happening. So, you got to follow the cost curves. If a task is pennies and minutes, it's ripe for redesign. And so I recommend that companies build a signals hypotheses experiments loop, a SHE loop as it's called, that ships small pilots every 14 days. Kind of, the way that innovators like to work in quick sprints. That way you have a far more definable goal that you can reach. So, for example, we just saw Anthropic release the latest AI SDK, and they acknowledge that agentic is the wave of the future. So they renamed it. It was no longer software development kit, but it was AI agent kit. Giving you an idea of how they're seeing it happen. And what I like particularly in this announcement was the fact that you could install it locally on your machine and have it actually parse audio files. Of course, you would require some coding skills like Python to do that, which is not for the average individual. But, hopefully people are going to come and use these tools to create applications so that you and I can quickly, parse our machines because we have built such a rich knowledge base But unfortunately, we can't use it because you and I both know that it's impossible to access this information without any real good help. I have it's my Evernote. The last time I had it had almost 20,000 notes. I know that I have over 100,000 documents in my main trends folder. These are ripe for harvesting, ripe for the insights, but we just can't do it because the tools are too complicated. Despite the fact that, we have that simple little chat line, that's the wave of the future. But unfortunately, actually being able to accomplish anything with some productivity boost is almost impossible because, as you well know, Silicon Valley is its own enemy. It makes everything too damn complicated because it's engineers designing for engineers. So anything that is released immediately requires this massive deep dive, GitHub connectivity, things that the average corporate individual just cannot manage. So I see, hopefully, that this AI and, the thing I like about it is that early on, we saw that the coding agents were going to dramatically boost productivity, and they're going to revolutionize the market because the change is going to happen from the inside. Because now you and I can create an app by just chatting. That's nirvana for me. I don't know about you, but that is what I dream about every night, especially as a former software startup entrepreneur, because the developers were the one holding us hostage. They're the only one that could produce a product that worked, but to get them to do it right was almost impossible. The same is happening right now in the coding revolution. I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a lot of pushback of late on all of this stuff. And people are saying that it's actually slowing down the developers. But keep in mind, where are these surveys being done? These surveys are being done among developers. And what the developers are going to report to a researcher when they say, will the machine replace your job?
There are so many kind of frustrations with, you can kind of see the potential of AI sometimes, but there are like frustrations in terms of kind of making it work and do all that kind of stuff. But we know from previous tech revolutions that user interfaces become better over time. Things just sort of blend into the background and become kind of much easier to use. What advice would you give to people in terms of sort of spotting those long-term trends? Because I think what tends to happen sometimes is people can get very caught up in, for example, as you say there, the code not being good enough or the interface not working properly or pilots failing. And sometimes people can see that as a signal that this is all hype and it's not going to happen quite as it's pitched. What was your advice to people there in terms of sort of spotting the true signal and the true direction when there are always going to be these kind of setbacks with technology?
Let's take our current situation. I mean, again, look at this pattern matching, right? So in the early 90s, we got Windows 3.1. And everybody still makes jokes about that, right? Even someone has created a little interface that mocks it so that you can play and pretend that you're back in 1995. I absolutely love it. 300 baud, etc. So when you look at that experience, and I forgot the URL, I should have it at my fingertips because it's a perfect one. And you compare it to what you can do now on your phone, you see the dramatic changes that have occurred over that 30-year span. It took 30 years. So, this stuff like the AI ain't going to happen in 2 to 3 years, as everybody is saying, but it certainly will happen because we know as well as anyone that if you look at the amazing changes that have occurred and that we can actually metrify, so we can see, for example, if you look at the massive multitask language understanding benchmark, the MMLU, and you can see that GPT-3 in 2020 was 44%. and OpenAI O1 in December 2024, which is the last model we have, is 92% on that scale, which is a test that, looks at about 50 tasks and tries to measure the capability of the language model. You can see, oh my goodness, that is just 4 years for more than doubling in capability. So, and then as well as I do that there are other benchmarks like the agentic. How long will it take agents to be able to do tasks for a week long without human intervention? Well, those benchmarks are doubling every 7 months. So that means that, hey, we are moving into the direction. Yes, there's going to be hiccups, but I can tell you for sure that by 2030 rolls around, society will look radically different from what it does today because, and it may not necessarily be on the surface, but under the surface, you've got these huge revolutions that are bubbling. The governments are not prepared to manage the job disruption that will happen. McKinsey boosted its warning that 45 million U.S. workers could be displaced in 5 years, about a year and a half ago, when they were talking about, much more simplified robotics, document processing, etc. Look, Goldman Sachs says 300 million full-time jobs globally could be exposed to generative AI. I don't know what exposed means. So, it could, we're using ChatGPT at work. That's exposed, right? But the reality is we are seeing early signals. So, for example, Ford CEO predicting that AI will replace half of America's white-collar jobs. Microsoft saying we have cut 15,000 positions in sales, customer service, and engineering, identifying specifically the departments where the cuts were coming, and then saying we have already got $500 million in savings due to the use of AI. And we know that the early adopters of AI are obviously going to be the people that create these tools, right? So it is the technology industry that's going to run ahead of everyone else. And in the past, when I wrote this generative AI white paper last year, I could tell that we could already see the layoffs in the technology industry starting. And of course, no company is going to admit that they laid people off due to the adoption of more machinery. They don't want to say that. So it's streamlining, it's more organizational efficiency, and all the other terms we like to use when we don't want to admit what the real reason is for the layoffs. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And so what would your advice be to people in terms of mapping out their career? Because I think that I've kind of read a number of reports on this, and I think the World Economic Forum published something a few months ago that said AI was going to finish off 90 million jobs, but an extra 170 million would be created or something. So it's a kind of a confusing picture, but whatever happens is likely that any new jobs that are created won't require quite the same skills as the jobs that are eliminated. So what would your careers advice be to people around, skills that they should focus on and how they should think about work moving forward?
Well, again, the force at play here is that you need to become far more capable using AI. There's no doubt in my mind. And I guess it's an obvious statement to make, and no one would be surprised at it. But, in Silicon Valley, they're talking about the 1000X engineer, right? So that is the person that is worth that $200 million package that Meta actually offered that Apple engineer. I mean, when you think about this, $200 million package, it just boggles the imagination. Of course, it also tells you that how incredibly key these people are in trying to move their technology envelope forward at Meta. But at the same time, it also tells you a lot about what kind of upskilling you need to be able to do. And the field is moving so fast that you literally need an AI agent to be able to keep on top of AI. And that's what we all want, right? We all want, so there are companies out there doing it, N8N, Mind Studio. These are tools that I highly recommend you investigate. They help you create agents so you can start playing. They're fairly easy to set up. Easy is probably a relative statement, but you do need to follow a couple of YouTube videos to be able to do something, but you will be able to create an agent pretty quickly. And this is the wave of the future. This is what you need to do because there's no doubt that, Sherlock Holmes would tell Watson, the game's afoot, because, Amazon's CEO said AI takeover is coming. Salesforce says already AI is doing 50% of the work at Salesforce. I mean, some of this might be verbose, hyperbole, and may not be the truth. But the reality is, look, it's happening at the edges and it's going to mainstream. So your job is to watch YouTube videos. I know it sounds very simplistic, but watch YouTube videos. See what people are doing. I am particularly enamored right now of the AI influencer trend. I look at this and I'm saying, holy cow, it's the confluence of two powerful trends, AI, video, and of course the social media influencer, but now as an avatar. And when I look at that, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what is this not going to do to the marketing industry, which of course is where I came from. This is totally disruptive. So again, small pilot studies, think about, pilots, 3 helpers in hiring, do some intake to clarify the role, sourcing to find prospects, scheduling CRM to keep momentum. 90-50-10s. This is what you do. You do it in a sprint, maybe a 90-day sprint that makes it more doable. You do this as a person, not as an organization. You said to yourself, okay, here's what I'm going to achieve. I'm in 10 days, I'm going to, be able to do a Mind Studio agent. In 30 days, I'm going to be able to create my first AI avatar. In 90 days, I'm going to be able to actually use the Claude Code SDK and create a more sophisticated AI agent. That is what you need to be able to do. I know it sounds like a tall order, but reskilling is key. I mean, you're in the talent acquisition business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose as a final question for you, we talked a little bit about things not happening quite as quickly as people predicted, but the trend is absolutely there. The direction of travel is very much clear. Where do you think we'll be in 18 months to 2 years time? Kind of, how far along this journey are we gonna be, in the next sort of coming months and year?
Look at what's happening today. So in 2020, we had the introduction of GPT-3 that had an arcane interface and only the nerds knew about it. So just 5 years later, we are able to generate complete business strategies using chatbots. We can actually deploy an app using chatbots. That happened in 5 years. So in 2 to 3 years, of course, the models are going to be more powerful, but we're also going to see, for example, here's a great parallel. I came from digital marketing. It took 26 years to get to 16,000 apps, or 17,000, I believe. In just 3 years since that November 30th introduction of ChatGPT, we have already seen 40,000 AI apps created. So every possible pain point in the world is going to be solved. And I'm going to say that 2 years from now, we're going to have agents able to perform day-long tasks that you used to be able to do, that humans did by themselves before. That is what I see happening within 2 to 3 years.
Michael, thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, it was a pleasure having you, Matt. Thank you so much.
My thanks to Michael. You can follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can search through all the past episodes at recruitingfuture.com, where you can also subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Recruiting Future Feast, and get the inside track on everything that's coming up on the show. Thanks very much for listening. I'll be back next time, and I hope you'll join me.
This is my show.